Is the night chilly and dark? The night is chilly, but not dark. The thin gray cloud is spread on high. It covers, but not hides the sky. The moon is behind and at the full, and yet she looks both small and dull. The night is chill, the cloud is gray. 'Tis a month before the month of May, and the spring comes slowly up this way.
Hey there, viewer! Let's talk about Episode 7. I've been dying to talk to you about Episode 7. I can't believe we've actually made it this far. You guys have probably already seen Episode 7 multiple times by now, so I'm going to jump to the main points while trying to go into some kind of order. First of all, I would like to say that I'm extremely disappointed with the YouTube Murder Drones theorist community because almost no one wants to talk about the church. What a bunch of heretics. The church is like the best part. There are so many implications with the church, but before we go deeper into it, let's talk about the weather. A lot of you have been wondering, why is there a storm underground? Well, for starters, in real life, massive cave systems have been known to have their own weather system because of how humidity works, and it has to do with water turning into vapor, and then into clouds, and then into rain. So it's not impossible. However, in this case, I do think there is solver techno magic going on. Throughout the episode, we get to see yellow lightning hitting the inside of the flesh pit that's found at the center of the church. We know from episode 6 that the flesh pit is made by the solver, likely with the help of the solver centipede and several human bodies. Episode 7 showed us that the flesh pit can work as a portal of some kind. This is likely so that the solver host can jump into space and begin the next step in the invasion. This is my own personal guess, but I think what is meant to happen is for the solver host to reach the atmosphere and then create a massive null black hole to block out the sun. At this point in the show, we all know that the solver and anything connected to the solver can be damaged by UV rays, aka sunlight. In episode 4, during one of N's memory flashes, we can see a giant null black hole in the sky. And in episode 7, when Sin tries to regain control of N, we see what looks like another planet-sized black hole that's likely blocking out the sun. Hence, the orange-red color in the sky and surroundings. So blocking out the sun would be extremely important for the solver. However, on a smaller scale, I think that the solver host and other solver related items can create small contained storms in a surrounding area. For example, did you ever notice all the rain in the mansion episode? When you think about it, the show would have ended the moment Sin was exposed to the sun. But by some coincidence, the mansion was covered in storms which allowed Sin to roam free. However, I think the contained storm serves a second purpose, and that is to maintain the meat portal. When you look at the meat pit, it's red and fleshy, instead of being dark and rotten. You can also see veins spreading everywhere. This means that the meat pit is alive and is pumping blood and fluids to the surrounding muscles.
California girls were unreliable, never worked a day in our lives.
Your own body does this, and it uses your own heart to pump the blood to all the veins so that your body doesn't decay. I don't know if the meat pit has a heart or if it simply uses multiple muscles to pump blood, but what I can tell you is that I am pretty sure the storm is intentionally sapping the meat pit so that it stimulates the muscles into moving and continue to pump fluids. Flesh bodies, nerves, and muscles do use some level of electricity to function, so it's likely that the storm works as a constant defibrillator to keep the pit working. and to gather energy for the space jump. Anyways, now that I'm done talking about fleshy pits, let's talk about the church itself. From a distance, you can tell that this is no ordinary church. There are so many silver-looking symbols around the structure that seem to resemble eyes, cameras, and strangely enough, stars. The star symbol themselves caught my attention. They seem to resemble the morning star. The morning star has multiple meanings, both good and bad, but in this case I want to concentrate on the bad. For starters, sometimes the devil is referred to as the morning star. As a small example, in Hazbin Hotel, Charlie's name is Charlie Morningstar. This morning star can also be referred to as the planet Venus, and apparently the Sumerian goddess Inanna. The devil has also been referred to as the most beautiful angel or the brightest star. This is interesting considering that the solver made the disassembly drones to look angelic and pretty, and in the show, the solver is synonymous with a bright yellow color. Also, in the latest sneak peek, we can see giant tendrils that are likely from the real body of the solver, and we can see that they look almost as if they were made out of pure light. Ironic for a creature that can't touch the sun. Another thing to add is that the solver and the disassembly drones have a lot of references to eyes and symbols of eyes. This is important because having multiple eyes is synonymous with biblically accurate angels. Something else to note is how episode 7 was released on Good Friday, only adding more mystery to the connection between religion and the Murder Drones lore. A few more things to note is how Sin herself has been referred to as the Antichrist, and how the Murder Drone's corruption glitch is 606, which is very close to the Bible's mark of the beast, a 666. However, it doesn't stop there. There are other strange religious symbolism across the show. In episode 6, there are 4 close-up shots of Tessa's head with a mysterious bell ringing in the background. Perhaps it's just a coincidence, but 4 church bells are synonymous with the Eucharist. The Eucharist is something that both the Catholic and Orthodox faiths do along with some other Protestant sects. In summary, during Mass, Christians eat a wafer, aka communion bread, and some wine. It represents the body and blood of Jesus, but specifically for the Catholic faith, it is believed that the bread and wine transmutate into the body of Christ after you eat it. This fits with some of the themes of the show, like how the whole robots turning organic from the inside because they have a piece of the solver inside of them, or perhaps it's more about how objects, in this case machines, are being turned into organics. The devil is often portrayed as mimicking Christ in stories as a form of mockery, or as an attempt to show itself as an equal or greater due to its pridefulness. So all the Christ-like imagery goes with the themes of our villain. And speaking of Christ-like imagery, I'm about to talk about something I bet not a single one of you has ever seen or heard anybody else talk about.
Think fast, Chuckle Nuts!
Oh, honey. You're back home.
At the beginning of episode 3, there's a scene with Uzi in her room. In this scene, there are several little clues relating to the show's mysteries and themes, but in this particular case, I would like to point at the picture at the bottom left of Uzi. It's hard to tell what it is, but thanks to some glitch-in shenanigans, I was able to get a better glimpse of what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present to you to Saint Christopher. The painting in particular is called Saint Christopher Facing to the Right by Albert Dürer. My apologies again for mispronouncing that. Saint Christopher is venerated by several Christian denominations as a martyr killed in the reign of the 3rd century Roman Emperor Decius. His most famous legend tells that he carried a child who was unknown to him across a river before the child revealed himself to be Christ. Therefore, he is the patron saint of travelers, and small images of him are often worn around the neck, on bracelets, carried in pockets, or placed in vehicles by Christians. It is believed that he watches over and intercedes for those that travel, protecting them from danger and illness. He specifically protects against lightning and pestilence, and it is believed that he also intercedes for several common physical ailments. In addition, he has been claimed as the patron saint of numerous locations around the world and is also revered by athletes, mariners, and ferrymen. Immediately, you can start seeing some strange patterns with this information. Saint Christopher is often portrayed as having a small child on his back, and of course that small child being Jesus. I find this interesting because we have seen Uzi and Anne being portrayed in a similar manner, with Uzi on Anne's back. So, was the show trying to tell us early on that Uzi was destined to be some type of savior? With all this symbolism of the Eucharist, it is possible that by the end of the show, Uzi's code will be used to make a new cure against the solver for future generations of drones. Maybe. But if that's the case, then is the story suggesting Uzi will sacrifice herself? In the last episode, she did indeed sacrifice herself, but it was just a fake-out death. We know that it's likely Anne will be the one to sacrifice himself in the next episode. So, could the St. Christopher clue be saying that Uzi is like St. Christopher, and she's the one pushing Anne towards destiny?
Before we met, scary stuff was actually pretty scary. And tonight too, because you weren't with me to make it fun somehow. I kind of forgot what that was like.
Same.
Then we'll stick together.
Don't fucking touch it!
Another interpretation of this could be that Uzi was looking for spiritual protection. Christian drones are canon in the show, and in episode 3 is when Uzi really starts to feel the side effects of the solver. We also know that before the prom night, she was already suffering from visions relating to the solver, so perhaps Uzi started looking into her local faith for guidance. After all, St. Christopher protects against lightning and pestilence, two things that are synonymous with the solver. But wait, there's more! Uzi's stained glass kinda resembles how Jesus is usually portrayed with his arms stretched out. It doesn't stop there either. Did you ever notice that V's stained glass seems to resemble St. George? Specifically the depiction of St. George and the dragon. St. George was an early Christian martyr who is venerated as a saint in Christianity. According to tradition, he was a soldier in the Roman army. He became a member of the Praetorian Guard for Roman Emperor Diocletian. My apologies for mispronouncing. But was sentenced to death for refusing to recant his Christian faith. He became one of the most venerated saints and heroes in Christianity. And he has been specifically venerated as a military saint since the Crusades. He is respected by Christians, Druze, as well as some Muslims as a martyr of monotheistic faith. In legend, St. George defeats a dragon. The story goes that the dragon originally extorted tribute from villagers. When they ran out of livestock and trinkets for the dragon, they started giving up human tribute once a year. This was acceptable to the villagers until a princess was chosen as the next offering. The saint thereupon rescues the princess and kills the dragon. When you take all of this into consideration and you go back to Anne's stained glass sneak peek, you can deduce that maybe, just maybe, his stained glass will be Archangel Saint Michael. And if this assumption is correct, then that will mean that Anne will be the one to defeat Sinessa. By the way, have you ever wondered why Christian drones exist and how it might relate to the church? What I'm about to say is speculative, but after everything that we have talked about in the Cabin Fever Protocol, I think I can make a decent guess. Hi there, my name is Murphy64 and I'm not sponsored by Destro Lingerie. Do you like V for murder drones? Do you want to look like V? Then let me introduce you to Dresho's fine line of assorted stockings. I believe that when Copper 9 was founded, a group of missionaries settled in the area that would later on become the Cabin Fever campsite. But before it was a camp, I think that this group of missionaries started out as a radio station of some kind. The 98.7 radio station, to be precise.
It all makes sense now. Yes, it all makes sense now.
have a feeling that during one particular night, the station received a message from the void of space. When it comes to the cosmic horror, it's not unusual for regular religious people to be tricked or forced into worshipping the endless horrors of the cosmos. For example, I have suspicion that Liam Vickers may have taken inspiration from the movie Dagon by Stuart Gordon. This movie is heavily inspired by Lovecraft's story Shadow over Innsmouth. I think that's how you pronounce it. And in this particular story, cultists that worship a mysterious entity from the sea take over a local Catholic church in their town. The cult that goes on to make deals with their cosmic god, where they create human hybrids in exchange for wealth and treasure. And I think something similar may have taken place in Copper 9. I think that the cult leader went on to create the campsite as a form of attracting new recruits, while they worshipped in secret underground. You probably guessed by now where I'm going with this. I think Jesse Jensen was founded by the cult. I don't think that the entire company knows, but I definitely think that the founders of the company know exactly what's going on. The reason why I say this is because of how casual the company is about the church. A lot of theorists have dismissed this as a gag because of the poster that points out to ignore the church, but the church is clearly important to the story. When you look back on the poster talking about ignoring the church, it reads off of like the higher-ups just don't want the employees asking about it. They clearly know something. We still don't know exactly how Tessa's family fits into all of this, but it's clear that they are likely related to Jesse Jensen and likely have a lot of money and power from them, considering small clues in the show, here and there. But the biggest piece of evidence is the fact that their robot maids have the Solver eye symbol in their crowns. The same symbol can be seen in the Pope hat down in the labs, and even stranger, the entire church is surrounded by female statues who also happen to have crowns in their heads. What could all of this mean? For example, have you ever noticed how only feminine robots seem to be chosen as potential Solver hosts? What could be the significance of that? But it just keeps getting weirder, my friends. For example, did you ever notice that the church is surrounded by graveyards? There are multiple tombstones surrounding the church, to the point where the church itself almost looks like a giant crypt. But what's the deal with that? Why would the humans put a cemetery all the way down there? Originally, I made an assumption that perhaps several miners must have gotten into some kind of accident, and the number of bodies were too great, so the humans had to bury them all down there. And wouldn't you know it, I may have been right. In Uzi's conspiracy wall, there's a well-hidden newspaper talking about a mining accident. The newspaper was even speculating on the possibility of a sabotage of some kind. Perhaps the cult had something to do with it. Maybe some kind of sacrifice to their god. Now I really want to talk about Nori, but I should probably save that for the next video. So instead, I would like to just point out that in episode 7, Nori tells Anne that everything that happened is all her fault. As we already know from watching Uzi and Sin's interactions with the Solver, it's safe to say that the host has to have some level of consent to truly give in to the Solver.
I myself will carry you to the gates of Valhalla.
So this tells me there was something genuine about Nori's feelings towards humans and the world around her. Not only that, but maybe Nori sabotaged the lab in order for the Solver to win. We know that she had special access to the labs, and in one of the posters down in the mines, we can see that Nori broke out more than once. So maybe somewhere in between, she freed something that helped her escape during the next and last test. In the flashback, we can clearly see an eldritch centipede was helping her out, and we know it's not an extension of her body. If you look closely, you will see that it's hiding in the flesh pit, while the Nori host walks away from it. The show never directly addresses the centipede, and it's very important. If you looked closely during Nori's robot exorcism, there's a shadow behind Nori belonging to the centipede. Nori clearly isn't using her sober powers in this scene. Clearly something invisible is controlling everything, and as we already know, the centipede can hide itself using holograms. However, other sources of light affect the illusion and can give it away. That's why you always see Sin breaking all the lights. We have never seen the sober host make their body parts invisible. Every time invisibility or illusions are involved, the centipede is always there. So where did this one come from? I suppose that one can easily be explained by simply saying Nori probably let a squid core loose, and that's how she sabotaged the lab. But this is merely speculation. However, the mystery centipede only gets stranger, and it's hard to tell if it's the same one. For example, was the centipede in the mansion Sin, or was it a creation of Sin? Because here is where it gets weird, my dear viewer. If Sin turned herself into a monster centipede in the mansion, then why did she create Sinessa? Why isn't Sin's body connected to the centipede in the mansion massacre, but beforehand we see her riding on it like it's another extension? Even stranger still, what's with the second Sin down in the mines? Allow me to explain. During the beginning of episode 7, Uzi gets separated from En and Tessa, and goes unconscious, and when he wakes up, Sin is there to harass him. But if you look closely, this Sin is a centipede monster. It has the power of illusion, and when she goes in for a hug, you can clearly see the main centipede body. But this was also an illusion, and it was just the tendril of something bigger. For a while, I've been wondering what this entity is. It can't be Astronaut Tessa, because she's looking for the computer files and fighting Doll. And when we slow down the camera, we can clearly see that this thing is too big to be Sinessa. In fact, it might be something completely new. We know it has tendrils and a long body like the centipede, but if you look closer, this creature has several talons like feet. In episode 2, we have seen something a little similar to this, but this creature's feet are very different. And it's very suspicious how episode 7 never lets us get a full view of it. So I believe that this second Sin, as I call it, will be the final boss of episode 8. They will defeat Sinessa only for this new creature to make an entrance. But I still have a lot of unsolved questions about it. Is it the same centipede from the mansion? Or the same one from Nori's escape? And if so, has it been randomly chilling with Nori this whole time? Or did it come in one of the space pods? Well, I think that's it for now. There's still a lot for us to talk about. But at this point, we are done with the cabin fever protocol. Now, we need to revisit some old theories and wrap up the lore of murder drones. After the show's finale, I will likely make a few more theories around it. And after that, I will continue to move forward with other Murder Drones projects that I didn't get to do. So expect more Liam Vickers stuff from me and more Murder Drones. See you next time.